I'm tearing down this $100 marketplace find GM 305, ostensibly from a 1992 Camaro, on a quest to see if it's a roller block. Along the way, I'm going to show you a scrounger's guide to stuff that I keep and stuff that I throw away. Stick around. This crusty pile of garbage I picked up on Marketplace for about $150. Think this thing leaked a little bit of oil or what? Supposedly it was out of a 77,000 mile only Camaro that wrapped itself around a tree, but it's been sitting for a long time. It does spin over. I have a 3rd gen project that I just want to make running so I can punt it on down the road because it's way easier to sell a running car. That's where this comes in. We're stripping a bunch of this nonsense off. This is a TBI unit. This is the worst 305 you could probably get in 1992. I doubt it'd make 200 horsepower from the factory. Well, we're gonna throw a bunch of this junk away as I'm stripping it all off and picking stuff to go to the scrap bin. I also have a box of stuff that I'm keeping. So this is gonna be a real quick video. This is just stuff that I would keep versus stuff that I would put in the melted down pile. The super obvious alternator, power steering pump, and the entire accessory drive. Now, this is an old R12 compressor. Maybe somebody needs it for a core. I'm probably not gonna bother. That probably is gonna go in the melted down pile. Same thing with this smog pump. Definitely nobody wants that. The accessory drive on the whole though, even though this isn't the prettiest girl at the dance, the factory stuff just works better. I will sing the praises of like CVF Racing and other people that make V-belt and serpentine kits, but if you have one that's pretty much untouched, which this was, before I started tearing this off, I'll show you a picture that I took. This was a pretty darn complete motor. It looks like somebody did a water pump at one point because there's some orange silicone in a couple places. But other than that, this thing was complete AC, all the smog stuff, all the vacuum lines. Ergo, all of its bracketry and pulleys and stuff are in pretty good shape, even though they're dirty. Whether I keep it with this engine when I stab it in my other Camaro out there, I'm definitely keeping all this stuff because if I get into a point, especially if I want to keep AC on a small block Chevy, this is all definitely going to keep it piled. I mentioned the alternator. This is the smaller CS type units. On that front, pigtail. Whether I need this alternator or not, whether this alternator is good, I have no idea. But if you ever want to do a alternator swap in the future so you don't have to buy a pigtail off of Amazon or something like that for 12 or 15 bucks, you just have one. Same thing, I actually also kept the water temperature sender plug, just with a little 6-inch pigtail. You never know when stuff like that might come in handy. Stamp steel valve covers, don't care. Even if you put new gaskets in them, stamp steel, just, they leak, it's what they do. The power steering pump, even if the power steering pump is bad, I would keep it because you can rob the like shims out of the back of it to make it pump at a different pressure that you might need. Again, just never know when you're gonna need stuff like that, and even if I junked this whole thing, I would still pull that valve out of the back and put it in a Ziploc bag somewhere. But I would probably keep this stuff just for core charges. Same thing, I never throw away batteries. I always just put them in a corner and never need a core charge, I have one. I would normally tell you to keep the thermostat housing here, but of all the engine, this is probably in the worst shape. So we'll pull that off, but I don't know if I'm gonna keep that or not because the intake, definitely going in the scrap pile. Nobody needs an early 90s 2-barrel throttle body injection intake. If they do, I'm sure there's a million of them laying around out there for free. On the other hand, GM original PCV valve, higher quality than you're usually going to get at O'Reilly's or AutoZone, that's definitely going in the keep it box. Engine hoist points, also super handy. Not every intake's going to fit them, but if you have an intake that fits these, you can hook right to these without having to try to find a place where you can put some bolt to a chain if you ever need to pull the engine. So definitely keep those. This is a pretty specific coil. This would be like 2 early 90s, probably only cars, maybe like LT1 cars would use them. Well, now they use OptiSpark. So normally I would tell you to keep, you know, all the distributor, all the coil and stuff like that. Like, I'm definitely not throwing away the distributor. Number 1, it might be a core charge. Number 2, somebody might need it. Well, maybe nobody needs this one in particular. But I told you we were looking for see if this was roller cam. If this is a roller cam, that would mean this is probably a melanized gear. So even if this distributor, if I determine it's junk, I'll pop this gear off. Spark plugs. Now, you probably could get away with using a lot of used spark plugs because spark plugs are really pretty hardy. I mean, they go for like 100,000 miles. I don't reuse a lot of them, but I do take them all out and throw them in a box because you never know when you just need to plug an engine. If it's going to sit a long time, throw spark plugs in it. That way you don't get water in it, you don't get bugs, whatever else in it. But just to seal it up, These are Bosch Ultra Platinums, baby. We ain't throwing those away. Go right back in there. Whether you reuse them or not, throw your spark plugs in a jar somewhere because you might just need them just to plug up holes. I am going to keep all of these lines. Now you might ask yourself, Jeremy, are you really ever going to need a line that is this specific bend? No, and I really don't care about the lines. What I want are the ends. So I might just take like a Sawzall and Sawzall all these ends off to make it easier to remove. But what I really want are these inverted flare ends. Which again, that comes down to the OEMs just tended to use pretty high quality stuff. As long as you see they're not stripped out, I like keeping all those because number one, I have a big box of them, I don't have to buy them. And number two, I just found that the original stuff fits better than the stuff you buy off Amazon. Throttle bracket, definitely useful. That definitely goes in the keeper pile. Same thing with this distributor hold down. I actually just needed one of these a few weeks ago and had to go spend $20 for a Mr. Gasket branded one at O'Reilly's or something. Would have been nice if I would have had this, you know, for free. More fittings. Vacuum fitting. Heater hose fitting, I think. Either heater hose or vacuum. I can't remember what this does on a small block Chevy. Either way, keeping it. So I mentioned that I was keeping the brackets. That includes keeping a couple of these studs that are specific set lengths to match up to these brackets. So if you were using headers with this, you might have to get cute and make a spacer or something like that, but I would still rather have it than not. And last but not least, off the top of my head, spark plug wires. Now, these are 7mm wires, you know, nice Bosch wires, but would I use this whole set on a nice car? No, but hey, we've all burned up spark plug wires before. Take a couple of these, throw them in the back of your hot rod, you burn one going down the road, you can pop one out of your trunk that you got for free and limp yourself home. Oh, and victory, it is a roller cam. You see a little hold down here, and then our dog bones here, and the whole thing's actually in pretty good shape. There's some places where I think this exhaust crossover was leaking, so we've got some carbon buildup down here, and obviously a little trash that fell in while I was taking off the intake, but we'll clean that up. I think it'll run. You think it'll run? I bet it runs. Oh, and almost forgot, but of course, general nuts and bolts. That's gonna do it. Like I said, short and sweet. Let me know what you guys keep. What are your scrounger must-haves? Because that's just this engine. This was a different engine that was maybe a carbureted engine instead of this throttle body nonsense. Maybe there'd be cooler stuff.
If this were a Pontiac engine, I'd be looking at keeping things like the valley pan and aluminum front cover. Oh, and especially the plate that goes behind the water pump if it was still there.
Now we can deposit this where it goes on my floor. I'm gonna go get that and try it again. There it is. We'll see you guys next time.